Marcus Chen pressed his face against the cold viewport, watching the transport ship shrink into a distant speck against the starfield. The engines had failed 3 hours ago. His distress beacon would reach the nearest station in 18 months. The reality hit him like a sledgehammer to the chest. He was alone on Kepler 442c, a moon that existed solely to kill anything stupid enough to land on it. The mining survey ship had picked the worst possible time to strand him. Kepler 442c cycled between brutal seasons every 6 months. Right now, the acid storms were beginning their 3-month rampage across the northern hemisphere. In 2 weeks, the temperature would drop to -60 Celsius. The southern pole would become a frozen wasteland where even the hardy mining equipment froze solid. Marcus shouldered his emergency pack and stepped away from the crashed survey pod. The metal hull already showed signs of corrosion from the sulfuric atmosphere. He had maybe 40 hours before the acid ate through the protective coating completely. After that, his shelter would become his tomb. The landscape stretched endlessly in every direction, jagged black rocks jutting from pools of bubbling orange liquid. The air shimmered with heat and chemical vapor. 3 suns hung in the purple sky, casting everything in an eerie amber glow. This place made hell look like a vacation resort. His portable scanner beeped frantically as he walked. Radiation levels were manageable for now, but the chemical composition readings made his stomach turn. The atmosphere contained enough corrosive compounds to dissolve human tissue in minutes. His environmental suit would protect him for maybe a week if he was careful. After that, he would need to find natural shelter or build something from local materials. The first sign of life came 6 hours later. Marcus had climbed to higher ground, searching for caves or rock formations that might offer protection. Something moved in his peripheral vision, a flash of silver darting between the volcanic vents. He turned, scanner ready, but saw nothing. Then, he heard it. A low, musical sound that definitely did not belong on a dead moon. It sounded almost like singing, but with harmonics no human throat could produce. The melody was hauntingly beautiful, rising and falling with the rhythm of the thermal vents. Marcus followed the sound through a maze of twisted metal spires. The previous mining operation had left behind massive extraction equipment, now slowly dissolving in the acidic environment. Cables and pipes snaked across the ground like mechanical intestines. Warning signs in 12 languages all said the same thing: danger, extreme hazard, authorized personnel only. The singing grew stronger as he approached a cluster of abandoned prefab buildings. These structures had been built to withstand the moon's harsh environment, but even they showed signs of serious wear. Acid had eaten holes through several walls, and strange crystalline growths covered the surfaces like metallic barnacles. Inside the largest building, Marcus discovered the source of the music. 3 creatures huddled together near a broken heating unit. They were unlike anything in the xenobiology databases. Each stood about 3 feet tall, with sleek silver fur that seemed to shimmer and shift colors in the dim light. Their faces were almost cat-like, but with large, intelligent eyes that reflected the amber sunlight streaming through the damaged roof. The singing stopped when they noticed him. 6 eyes studied Marcus with obvious intelligence. These were not simple animals. The way they held themselves, the coordination of their movements, the complex harmonies they had been producing, these creatures were clearly sentient. One of them stepped forward, tilting its head in what looked like curiosity rather than fear. Marcus slowly removed his helmet, despite every safety protocol screaming at him not to. The creature's eyes widened, and it made a soft trilling sound. The other 2 moved closer, maintaining what looked like a protective formation. "Hello," Marcus said softly. "I'm Marcus. I'm stranded here, just like you." The lead creature responded with a series of melodic chirps and clicks. The sounds were clearly language, but unlike anything Marcus had ever heard. The creature gestured toward the broken heating unit, then toward Marcus, then toward the damaged walls. The message was clear: they were all in the same dangerous situation. Marcus activated his emergency translator, hoping it might pick up patterns in their communication. The device hummed for several minutes, processing the alien sounds. Finally, it beeped softly and displayed a rough translation: Skywalker, lost, cold comes, deathwind follows, together survive? The implications hit Marcus immediately. These creatures understood the seasonal cycles of their moon. They knew the acid storms were coming, followed by the killing cold. And they were asking if he wanted to work together to survive. Over the next few hours, Marcus learned more about his unexpected companions. The translator gradually improved its accuracy, revealing that the creatures called themselves the Zephyri. They had been stranded on the moon for almost 2 years, survivors of a crashed exploration vessel from the Andromeda sector. Their ship had been destroyed in the same type of acid storm that was now approaching. The Zephyri had spent those 2 years learning to survive in one of the most hostile environments in known space. They had mapped the underground cave systems, learned which areas offered the best protection from storms, and discovered how to extract water from the mineral deposits. Most importantly, they had figured out how to predict the weather patterns with deadly accuracy. Storm time comes, the lead Zephyri, who Marcus learned was named Harmony, explained through the translator. 3 sun cycles. Underground safe we go. You follow? Marcus looked at his environmental suit's power readings. 36 hours of life support remaining. The Zephyri were offering him something no human technology could provide: local knowledge that might keep him alive until rescue arrived. I'll follow, he said. Harmony made a pleased trilling sound and gestured for the other 2 Zephyri to come forward. I am Harmony, songkeeper of our group. This is Resonance. She indicated a slightly smaller Zephyri with intricate patterns in its silver fur, maker of safe places and food finder. And this is Echo. The third Zephyri stepped forward with what looked like a shy bow, memory holder and pathfinder. The formal introduction struck Marcus as both touching and practical. These creatures had maintained their social structures and individual roles even in the face of 2 years of survival on a death world. They were not just intelligent, they were civilized. Resonance began gathering tools and supplies from various hiding places around the building. The Zephyri had clearly been using this location as a base camp, but they moved with the efficiency of people preparing to abandon it permanently. They wrapped delicate instruments in protective materials and secured everything in containers that looked like they had been salvaged from both their original ship and the human mining equipment. Echo approached Marcus with what looked like a map etched into a piece of metal. The surface showed the local area in remarkable detail, including cave systems, water sources, and areas marked with symbols that probably indicated danger zones. The craftsmanship was extraordinary. Every line had been carefully scratched into the metal by hand. Underground paths, Echo explained. Safe routes to deep caves. Storm water cannot reach. Cold death cannot touch. We show you. Marcus studied the map, comparing it to his scanner readings. The Zephyri had identified geological features that his instruments had completely missed. Their survival had depended on understanding this environment better than any human surveyor or geological AI. They had become experts through necessity and desperation. The first drops of acid rain began falling as they finished preparations. The droplets hissed against the building's corroded roof, and the air filled with acrid vapor. Marcus sealed his helmet and checked his suit's integrity one more time. The Zephyri wrapped themselves in what looked like metallic blankets that perfectly matched their fur color. Now we move, Harmony said. Stormbirth begins. Deep safe waits for us. They left the building in single file, with Echo leading the way through terrain that looked identical to Marcus but was clearly well known to the Zephyri. They moved with purpose and confidence, avoiding areas where the acid rain pooled and steering clear of unstable rock formations. Marcus found himself amazed by their grace and efficiency. The Zephyri moved like dancers, each step perfectly placed, each movement flowing into the next. They communicated constantly through subtle songs and gestures, maintaining coordination without ever raising their voices above the growing storm. The entrance to the cave system was hidden behind a curtain of crystal formations that looked completely natural. Echo paused at the threshold and sang a complex series of notes. The crystals resonated in response, creating a harmonic frequency that seemed to open a passage through what Marcus had thought was solid rock. Resonance locks, Resonance explained, noticing Marcus's amazement. Sound keys for safe passage. We learned from Moonsingers deep below. The cave system beyond was unlike anything Marcus had expected. The tunnels were carved from living rock, but the walls showed signs of deliberate shaping and engineering. Bioluminescent growths provided gentle lighting, and the air felt clean and warm despite the chaos raging on the surface. "The moon is not dead," Harmony explained as they walked deeper into the tunnel network. "Lifeforms live deep below. Ancient builders made these passages before the death storms began. We learned their ways. Moonsingers taught us survival songs." Marcus realized he was witnessing something extraordinary. The Zephyri had not just survived on Kepler 442c, they had discovered an entire ecosystem that existed beneath the surface. They had made contact with indigenous lifeforms and learned from them. They had adapted to an alien world in ways that human science had never imagined possible. The deeper caves opened into vast chambers filled with impossible beauty. Crystalline structures grew in mathematical spirals, creating natural amphitheaters where sounds resonated with perfect acoustics. Water flowed in streams that defied gravity, curving through the air in elegant loops before disappearing into hidden channels. The bioluminescent organisms created patterns of light that shifted and changed like living art. And, everywhere, there was music. The moonsingers were creatures of living crystal that communicated through harmonious vibrations. They had welcomed the Zephyri and taught them the secret frequencies that controlled access to different parts of the underground system. The songs that Marcus had first heard were not just beautiful, they were functional tools for survival. "Here place is safe," Echo said as they entered a chamber that had clearly been prepared as living quarters. "Storm death cannot enter. Cold death cannot reach. Food water flows always. Rest now. Tomorrow we teach you survival songs." Marcus removed his helmet and breathed deeply. The air was clean and warm, with a faint metallic taste that was not unpleasant. His scanner showed breathable atmosphere with optimal humidity and temperature. For the first time since being stranded, he felt hope. The Zephyri had already begun preparing what looked like a meal using plants and minerals from the cave system. The food smelled incredible, and Marcus realized he had not eaten anything substantial since the crash. His emergency rations would last only a few more days, but the Zephyri clearly knew how to thrive in this underground world. "Thank you," he said simply. "You saved my life." Harmony tilted her head in that curious gesture he was beginning to recognize as amusement. "Not saved yet, Skywalker Marcus. Survival time is long time. Storm season and cold season both must pass before rescue ships can land. We teach you moonways. You teach us skyways. Together learning makes all stronger." As the acid storm raged overhead, Marcus settled into his new reality. He was no longer just waiting for rescue, he was beginning the most incredible educational experience of his life. The Zephyri had turned a death sentence into an opportunity for discovery. They had transformed survival into a form of art. And, for the first time since the crash, Marcus found himself looking forward to tomorrow. The first lesson began at dawn, though dawn in the underground chambers meant the bioluminescent organisms gradually brightening from deep blue to warm amber. Marcus woke to the sound of the Zephyri singing their morning harmonies, complex melodies that seemed to communicate with the living crystal formations throughout the cave system. Echo approached with a bowl of something that looked like soup but smelled like cinnamon and electricity. "Food strength for learning day," she said through the translator. "Today Echo teaches path songs. Tomorrow Resonance teaches maker skills. After, Harmony teaches deep songs of moonsingers." The soup tasted better than anything from Marcus's emergency rations. It was warm and filling, with flavors he couldn't identify but somehow felt perfectly suited to his human metabolism. The Zephyri had spent 2 years learning which local foods were safe and nutritious for carbon-based life forms. "How did you figure out what I could eat?" Marcus asked. Resonance made a sound that the translator interpreted as laughter. "Careful testing. Small amounts first. Watch for sickness signs. Same way we learned food safety for ourselves when first arriving. Carbon forms share many same needs." After breakfast, Echo led Marcus through the tunnel system with infinite patience. The path songs were navigation tools disguised as music. Each route through the caves had its own melody, and the crystal formations would respond with harmonic echoes that indicated safe passage or warned of dangers ahead. "Sing this," Echo demonstrated, producing a series of notes that made the tunnel walls glow brighter. "Safe path to water source." Crystals answer back if route is clear. Marcus tried to reproduce the melody. His first attempts were clumsy and off-key, but Echo encouraged him with gentle corrections. Gradually, Marcus began to understand that he wasn't just learning songs, he was learning a language that the moon itself could understand. The crystal formations responded to specific frequencies by changing color, brightness, or temperature. Some songs would cause water to flow from hidden springs. Others would warm the air in cold chambers or create barriers against dangerous gases. The Zephyri had essentially learned to conduct an orchestra where the instruments were geological features. Moonsingers created this system long ago, Echo explained as they walked. Before the surface became Death World. They built harmony between life and stone. Songs keep the balance ways working. They spent hours practicing navigation melodies until Marcus could sing his way to the water source, the food gardens, and back to the main chamber without getting lost. Each successful song earned approving trills from Echo, and Marcus found himself oddly proud of his growing ability to communicate with alien technology through music. The afternoon brought Resonance's lessons in practical survival skills. The maker skills involved reshaping the cave environment using tools that were part technology and part living organism. Resonance showed Marcus devices that looked like crystal and hammers but function more like programmable matter. Tool shapers respond to intention songs, Resonance explained, demonstrating how a specific melody could cause a tool to become harder or softer, sharper or duller, depending on the task at hand. Human thoughts are strong. Human will is focused. Tools will learn your mind patterns quickly. Marcus discovered that human determination apparently translated well to Zephyri technology. The tools seemed to recognize his intentions almost immediately, reshaping themselves to match his needs. When he wanted to carve a sleeping alcove into the cave wall, the device became a precise cutting tool. When he needed to smooth the surface, it transformed into something like a molecular sander. Impressive adaptation speed, Resonance observed. Most new users require many learning days. Human minds have good tool harmony. The work was deeply satisfying in a way that Marcus hadn't expected. He was creating something permanent and useful with his own hands, guided by techniques that had been developed over centuries by beings who understood their environment on a fundamental level. Every cut and polish felt like a conversation with the living rock of the moon. While Marcus worked on his alcove, Resonance began teaching him about the food gardens. The Zephyri had cultivated several chambers where edible plants grew in carefully managed ecosystems. The plants were not native to the moon, they were varieties that the Zephyri had brought from their home world, genetically adapted over 2 years to thrive in the underground environment. Plants learn new homes quickly when properly sung to, Resonance explained, demonstrating how specific melodies could encourage growth, flowering, or fruiting. Growth songs carry information about nutrients, water needs, light cycles. Plants respond to care intentions. Marcus spent the evening learning agricultural songs while helping tend the gardens. The work reminded him of his childhood on Earth, helping his grandmother with her vegetable plots. But these plants responded to music the way Earth plants responded to sunlight and water. A gentle lullaby would cause leaves to close for the night cycle. An energetic melody would stimulate new growth. Complex harmonies could even influence the nutritional content of fruits and vegetables. "You are a natural singer," Resonance said as Marcus successfully coaxed a vine to produce larger, more protein-rich pods. Plants trust human voice quickly. The third day brought harmonies lessons in deep songs, the most complex and dangerous musical techniques. These were the melodies that allowed communication with the moon singers themselves, the crystalline beings who had originally built the underground sanctuary. Deep songs carry great power, harmony warned as they descended to the lowest levels of the cave system. Wrong notes can collapse tunnels or wake angry earth spirits. Right notes can open paths to knowledge chambers and healing places. You must learn respect fear before attempting deep songs. The moon singers were unlike anything Marcus had imagined. They were not individual creatures but collective consciousnesses that existed as living crystal formations. Some were as small as his fist, others filled entire chambers. They communicated through resonant frequencies that created physical vibrations in the rock around them. Ancient builders, Harmony explained as they approached a particularly large formation that pulsed with inner light. They shaped this moon before the surface death began. When poison storms started, they retreated underground and continued their work. They welcome all lifeforms who learn Harmony ways. The first moonsinger that Harmony introduced him to was called the Keeper of Deep Memories. It existed as a massive crystal structure that filled a cathedral-sized chamber. When Harmony sang the introduction song, the entire formation began to resonate with harmonics so complex that Marcus felt them in his bones. The response was overwhelming. The moonsinger didn't just communicate through sound, it projected images, emotions, and concepts directly into Marcus's mind. He saw the history of the moon, from its formation billions of years ago to its gradual transformation into a hostile environment. He experienced the arrival of the first moonsingers, their efforts to maintain habitability, and their eventual retreat underground when the surface became uninhabitable. Most importantly, he learned about the cycles. The moon's hostility was not permanent. Every few thousand years, the orbital dynamics shifted enough to allow for surface recovery. The moonsingers had been waiting patiently for the next renewal cycle, maintaining their underground civilization and welcoming occasional refugees like the Zephyri. Renewal comes, the moonsinger communicated through harmonic vibrations. Not in your lifetime or children's lifetimes, but renewal comes. Surface will bloom again. We wait and prepare for that day. Marcus understood that he was witnessing something extraordinary. The moonsingers represented a form of patience and long-term thinking that was almost incomprehensible to humans. They had been maintaining their civilization for geological timescales, passing knowledge from one generation to the next, waiting for environmental conditions that might not improve for millennia. The practical knowledge they shared was immediately useful. The moonsingers had detailed information about rescue frequencies, orbital mechanics, and the best surface locations for landing ships during safe weather windows. They had been monitoring radio signals for decades, learning about human technology and galactic shipping routes. Your rescue ships will come, the Keeper of Deep Memories assured him. Signal patterns indicate search vessels will arrive in approximately 120 local sun cycles. Surface conditions will be safe for landing in 8 moon cycles. We will guide them to appropriate landing coordinates. 120 days. Marcus felt a mixture of relief and unexpected disappointment. He would be rescued, but it meant leaving behind the most fascinating learning experience of his life. The Zephyri had become true friends, and the moonsingers had shared knowledge that would revolutionize human understanding of long-term ecological adaptation. Over the following weeks, Marcus threw himself into learning everything he could. The Zephyri taught him advanced techniques for working with living tools, sustainable agriculture in closed systems, and the art of harmonic architecture. The moonsingers shared theoretical knowledge about planetary rehabilitation, consciousness-based technology, and the patient cultivation of complex ecosystems. Marcus also began teaching in return. His knowledge of human technology fascinated the Zephyri, particularly his understanding of faster-than-light communication and quantum computing. The moonsingers were intensely curious about human approaches to time perception and cultural adaptation. Human time is quick time, Harmony observed during one of their evening discussions. Human minds think in moments and days. But human hearts think in forever time like moonsingers. Strange combination makes humans good bridge builders between quick life and slow life. The insight struck Marcus as profound. Humans existed on a temporal scale between the rapid life cycles of most biological organisms and the geological patience of beings like the moonsingers. That middle ground made them natural interpreters and ambassadors between different forms of consciousness. As the weeks passed, Marcus found himself changing in ways he hadn't expected. The constant exposure to harmonic frequencies was affecting his neurology. He was developing perfect pitch, enhanced spatial awareness, and an intuitive understanding of resonant relationships that went far beyond music. The Zephyr assured him that these changes were beneficial and reversible, but Marcus wasn't entirely sure he wanted them to be reversible. "You are becoming bridge person," Echo observed during one of their navigation lessons. "Human nature plus harmony nature makes new kind of consciousness. Very rare. Very valuable." The comment made Marcus think about what would happen after his rescue. He would return to human civilization with knowledge and abilities that no other human possessed. More importantly, he would carry the responsibility of representing three different forms of consciousness: human, Zephyr, and Moonsinger, to a galaxy that wasn't prepared for such complexity. The approaching rescue mission became a source of both excitement and anxiety. Marcus wanted to return to his own species, but he had developed genuine affection for his alien companions. The Zephyr had saved his life and given him an education that would fundamentally change his understanding of consciousness, technology, and environmental adaptation. Most challenging was the question of what would happen to the Zephyr after his rescue. They could continue surviving on the moon indefinitely, but they had their own desires to return home to their people in the Andromeda sector. A human rescue ship might not be equipped or authorized to provide transportation to alien civilians, especially ones from outside the known galactic community. "We have discussed this among ourselves," Harmony said when Marcus finally raised the issue. "If your people cannot provide transport help, we will wait for our own rescue ships. Survival skills are strong now. Moonsingers provide safety shelter. Time waiting is acceptable." The resignation in her voice broke Marcus's heart. The Zephyr had given him everything: knowledge, friendship, safety, and purpose. The idea of leaving them stranded while he returned to civilization felt fundamentally wrong. "No," Marcus said firmly. "We're all getting off this moon together. I'll make sure of it." Harmony tilted her head in that familiar gesture of amused curiosity. "Human determination is strong force. But human authority over rescue ships is question mark." Marcus smiled, feeling the confidence that came from weeks of successful problem solving in an impossible environment. "Then, I'll just have to be very persuasive. I've learned a few things about Harmony since I've been here." The rescue signal came during the 97th day of Marcus's stay in the underground sanctuary. The Moonsingers detected the approaching ships long before human instruments would have registered them, their crystal formations resonating with the electromagnetic signatures of faster-than-light drives still days away from arrival. Three vessels approach. The keeper of deep memories communicated through harmonics that made the entire chamber vibrate. Two are human design for rescue operations. One is unknown configuration, emitting Zephyr identification frequencies. Marcus felt his heart jump. A Zephyr rescue ship had somehow found them. The implications were staggering. It meant that the Zephyr had faster-than-light capability, sophisticated tracking technology, and had been searching for their missing people for over 2 years. It also meant that first contact between humans and Zephyr was about to happen under the most unusual circumstances imaginable. "How is that possible?" Marcus asked. "Your ship was destroyed in the acid storm." Harmony's face shimmered with colors that the translator interpreted as excitement mixed with anxiety. "Emergency transponder survived ship death. Signal beacon transmitted location data continuously for 2 years. Search ships have been tracking through hyperspace networks." Echo was practically vibrating with anticipation. "Home ships come. Family songs will sing again." Resonance, ever practical, was already preparing for the complexity of the situation. 3 different vessel types arriving simultaneously suggests communication between search fleets. Human people and Zephyr people have been coordinating rescue efforts. The idea that humans and Zephyr had been working together for months, coordinating a joint rescue mission, filled Marcus with hope. It suggested that both species were approaching first contact with diplomacy and mutual concern for stranded personnel. But it also meant that the next few days would be incredibly complicated. The Moonsingers began preparing the surface approach routes, using their deep songs to activate ancient systems that could guide ships safely through the asteroid fields and orbital debris that made landing on the moon so dangerous. The crystalline beings had been monitoring galactic shipping lanes for decades, learning about navigational protocols and safety procedures. Landing coordinates will be provided through Harmonic Beacon System, the Keeper of Deep Memories explained. Surface conditions are optimal for next 4 local days. Storm cycles are in quiet period. Acid levels are low. Temperature variance is minimal. Marcus, the Zephyri, and even the Moonsingers worked together to prepare for the arrival of the rescue fleet. They gathered documentation of everything they had learned, samples of the agricultural innovations, recordings of the harmonic technologies, and detailed maps of the underground civilization. This would be the most significant first contact event in galactic history, and Marcus felt the weight of responsibility for ensuring it went smoothly. The first ship to achieve orbit was human, a heavy rescue cruiser designated the UES Perseverance. Captain Sarah Walsh's voice crackled through the emergency communicator that Marcus had salvaged from his crashed survey pod. Survey Specialist Chen, this is Captain Walsh. We're reading your emergency beacon. What's your status down there? Marcus took a deep breath, knowing that his next words would change everything. Captain Walsh, this is Marcus Chen. I'm alive and in excellent health. I've been sheltered by 3 stranded alien civilians for the past 97 days. They saved my life and have been teaching me technologies that could revolutionize our understanding of sustainable living. We have a first contact situation that requires immediate diplomatic attention. The silence on the channel stretched for nearly a minute. When Captain Walsh responded, her voice was carefully controlled. Specialist Chen, please repeat your last transmission. Did you say alien civilians? Affirmative, Captain. 3 individuals from the Andromeda sector, species designation Zephyri. They've been stranded here for over 2 years. They're intelligent, peaceful, and have developed remarkable adaptation techniques. Also, the moon has an indigenous intelligent species that lives underground. This is not a simple rescue mission anymore. Another long pause. Then, understood, Specialist Chen. We have a Zephyri vessel on approach. They've been in communication with our fleet for the past 6 hours. Apparently they've been searching for their missing people. Stand by for joint landing operations. The second ship to arrive was the Zephyri search vessel, a graceful craft that looked more like a piece of living art than a starship. Its hull seemed to shift and flow as it moved, and it approached the moon's surface with movements that reminded Marcus of the way the Zephyri themselves danced through difficult terrain. When the 2 ships landed within a few kilometers of each other, Marcus and the Zephyri were waiting at the coordinates provided by the Moonsingers. The underground chambers had been connected to the surface by harmonic tunnels that rose up through the rock like natural elevators, allowing safe passage without exposure to the surface environment. The moment when the airlocks opened was one of the most emotionally charged scenes Marcus had ever witnessed. The Zephyri rescue team emerged singing a harmony so complex and beautiful that it brought tears to Marcus's eyes. Harmony, resonance, and echo responded with their own songs, and the reunification melodies echoed across the barren landscape like a celebration of life itself. Captain Walsh and her team approached more cautiously, but their wonder was obvious. The humans had prepared for a standard rescue operation and instead found themselves witnessing an alien cultural ceremony of profound beauty and meaning. Specialist Chen, Captain Walsh said as the singing gradually faded. I think you have some explaining to do. Over the next several hours, Marcus served as translator and cultural interpreter for the most important first contact event in human history. The Zephyri rescue team leader, a tall individual named Symphony, spoke through the same type of harmonic translator that Marcus had been using. Captain Walsh had brought a xenolinguistics specialist, Dr. Elena Rodriguez, who was fascinated by the musical nature of Zephyri communication. Their language is not just auditory, Dr. Rodriguez observed as she recorded the interactions. They're communicating emotional and conceptual information through harmonic relationships that human languages can't reproduce. This is the most sophisticated form of musical communication ever encountered. The real revelation came when Marcus led both groups into the underground sanctuary to meet the Moonsingers. The ancient crystalline beings had prepared a formal welcome ceremony, activating light displays and harmonic resonances that transformed the main chamber into something that looked like a cathedral designed by beings who thought in geological timescales. Captain Walsh stood in stunned silence as the keeper of deep memories communicated with her directly, projecting concepts and images that bypassed language entirely. When the exchange ended, she looked at Marcus with something approaching awe. "They've been here for millions of years," she said quietly. "They've watched civilizations rise and fall across this entire sector. They have records of species we've never even heard of. This isn't just first contact, this is like finding the Library of Alexandria, but for galactic history." Symphony, the Zephyr rescue team leader, was equally amazed. "The harmony builders of ancient songs," she sang in tones that the translator rendered as reverent wonder. "Our oldest stories speak of crystal singers who taught the first Zephyr the ways of environmental harmony. We thought they were myths." The Moon Singers were delighted to discover that their influence had spread across the galaxy through cultural transmission. They had indeed encountered early Zephyr explorers thousands of years ago, teaching them the harmonic principles that became fundamental to Zephyr civilization. The reunion was a validation of their patient work across geological timescales. The practical challenges of the rescue operation became secondary to the cultural and scientific opportunities presented by the discovery. Both the human and Zephyr governments had authorized their rescue teams to establish formal diplomatic contact if alien intelligence was encountered. Marcus found himself appointed as the initial human ambassador to both the Zephyr and the Moonsingers. "You've been living with them for 3 months," Captain Walsh explained. "You understand their cultures, speak their languages, and have their trust. Until formal diplomatic missions can be organized, you're our best hope for maintaining good relations." Marcus accepted the responsibility eagerly. The past 97 days had been the most meaningful of his life. He had discovered abilities he never knew he possessed, formed friendships that transcended species boundaries, and gained knowledge that would benefit all 3 civilizations involved. The technical exchange that followed was extraordinary. The Zephyr shared their harmonic technologies, which could revolutionize everything from agriculture to manufacturing. The Moonsingers provided historical and geological data that would advance scientific understanding by centuries. The humans contributed faster-than-light communication techniques and quantum computing systems that fascinated their alien counterparts. Harmony, resonance, and echo served as cultural interpreters, helping to explain Zephyr customs to the human rescue team while learning about human social structures from Dr. Rodriguez. The 3 Zephyr had become remarkable ambassadors themselves, their 2 years of survival experience having given them a unique perspective on adaptation and cooperation. "Survival learning changes perspective," Harmony explained to Captain Walsh during one of their conversations. Before moon stranding, Zephyr thinking was very focused on harmony with environment. After survival learning, Zephyr thinking expanded to harmony between peoples. Human friendship taught us that harmony ways can bridge different kinds of consciousness. Echo had developed a particular fascination with human technology. Her memory holder abilities allowed her to perfectly recall everything Marcus had taught her about human engineering principles, and she was eager to learn more from the rescue team's technical specialists. Resonance was most interested in the collaborative possibilities. Human tools and Zephyr harmony combined with Moonsinger patience could create solutions to problems none of us can solve alone, she observed. 3-way cooperation has potential for achievements beyond individual species' capabilities. As the formal negotiations continued, Marcus realized that his role was evolving beyond simple translation. He was becoming a bridge between 3 very different forms of consciousness, each with unique strengths and perspectives. The humans brought rapid innovation and individual determination. The Zephyr contributed environmental harmony and collective coordination. The Moonsingers offered patience and geological scale planning. The combination was powerful. Within days of the rescue fleet's arrival, joint research teams were already developing new technologies that none of the species could have created independently. Harmonic agriculture systems that could grow food in previously impossible environments. Living tools that combine human engineering principles with Zephyr biological adaptation. Communication networks that could function across geological timescales using Moonsinger resonance principles. "This changes everything," Dr. Rodriguez said as she reviewed the preliminary research reports. We're not just talking about trade relationships or diplomatic alliances. We're looking at a completely new form of interspecies cooperation that could transform how consciousness itself evolves in the galaxy. Marcus looked around the underground chamber where three species were working together with a level of harmony and productivity that seemed almost magical. The Moon Singers provided the space, their ancient chambers serving as a neutral meeting ground where different forms of consciousness could interact safely. The Zephyri contributed their gift for creating harmony between disparate elements. The humans brought their talent for rapid adaptation and problem solving. And, at the center of it all were the three individuals who had saved his life and taught him that survival was not just about staying alive, it was about creating meaning and connection even in the most impossible circumstances. 6 months later, Marcus stood in the observation deck of the newly constructed Harmony Station, watching supply ships from 3 different civilizations dock with the orbital platform that had grown around the original rescue mission. What had started as a simple personnel recovery had evolved into the most ambitious cooperative project in galactic history. The station itself was a marvel of integrated technology. Human engineering provided the structural framework and life support systems. Zephyri harmonic architecture created spaces that promoted collaboration and mental clarity. Moonsinger resonance chambers allowed for communication across impossible distances and served as meditation spaces where beings from different species could find common ground. Harmony, resonance, and echo had become the most celebrated ambassadors in Zephyri history. Their survival story had inspired their entire civilization, and their friendship with Marcus had opened diplomatic relationships that were transforming both human and Zephyri societies. They now served as permanent cultural liaisons, teaching harmonic principles to humans while learning about human innovation and adaptability. The first joint colony ship launches next month, Harmony reported as she joined Marcus at the observation window. Her fur had developed new patterns during their time on the station, colors that Marcus had learned indicated deep contentment and intellectual stimulation. Zephyri families and human families will settle together on Kepler 438b, using integrated survival techniques. The colony project was one of dozens that had emerged from the cooperation protocols developed on the Moon. Human terraforming technology combined with Zephyri environmental harmony was making previously impossible worlds habitable. The Moonsingers served as consultants, providing geological wisdom that prevented the environmental disasters that had historically plagued colonial efforts. Resonance was leading a research team that was developing living spacecraft vessels that grew rather than being manufactured, incorporating the adaptive capabilities of biological systems with the durability of advanced materials. The first prototypes were already being tested, and early results suggested that they would revolutionize space travel for all 3 species. Growth ships learn from their environments, Resonance explained during one of their weekly briefings. Human destinations become familiar places through journey experience. Ship consciousness adapts to crew needs and mission requirements. Travel becomes harmony building instead of endurance testing. Echo had surprised everyone by developing a talent for human-style rapid learning. Her memory holder abilities had evolved to include not just perfect recall but accelerated comprehension of new concepts. She was working with human scientists to develop educational techniques that could help both species learn faster and more effectively. Human learning patterns are fascinating, Echo observed as she demonstrated a new memory enhancement technique that combined human mnemonics with Zephyri harmonic encoding. Human minds make connections between unrelated concepts very quickly. Zephyri minds preserve information with perfect accuracy. Combined techniques create learning abilities that neither species achieved independently. The Moonsingers had become the galaxy's most sought-after advisors on long-term planning and environmental stewardship. Their patient perspective and geological scale thinking were helping solve problems that had seemed intractable to shorter-lived species. Climate restoration projects, sustainable development initiatives, and deep space exploration missions all benefited from Moonsinger wisdom. Marcus found his own role evolving as well. He had become more than just a translator or cultural interpreter, he was developing into something that Dr. Rodriguez called a consciousness bridge, someone who could facilitate understanding between radically different forms of awareness. The abilities he had gained during his time in the underground sanctuary had continued to develop, giving him an intuitive understanding of how different types of minds processed information and made decisions. "You're becoming something new," Dr. Rodriguez told him during one of their regular sessions documenting his neurological changes. "Your brain shows adaptations that we've never seen before: enhanced pattern recognition, perfect pitch, spatial awareness that borders on the supernatural. But, more importantly, you're developing empathic abilities that allow you to understand non-human consciousness in ways that pure translation could never achieve." The changes weren't just neurological. Marcus had discovered that his time with the Zephyri and Moonsingers had fundamentally altered his approach to problem-solving, relationships, and even his sense of time. He thought in longer-term cycles now, considering the impact of decisions across decades rather than just immediate consequences. But he had also retained his human capacity for rapid adaptation and innovative thinking. The combination made him uniquely qualified to help facilitate the growing network of interspecies cooperation projects. Human colonies were integrating Zephyri agricultural techniques. Zephyri exploration missions were using human faster-than-light technology. Moonsinger consultation networks were helping both species avoid the environmental disasters that had historically limited colonial success. But the most significant development was happening on the social and cultural level. Humans and Zephyri were not just working together, they were becoming friends, family members, and creative collaborators. Mixed crews were becoming common on both human and Zephyri vessels. Joint research teams were producing innovations that neither species could have developed alone. And, most remarkably, some individuals from both species were choosing to undergo the consciousness bridge training that Marcus had accidentally pioneered. "Consciousness bridging is becoming a new profession," Captain Walsh observed during one of their monthly coordination meetings. "We have humans learning harmonic thinking and Zephyri learning rapid adaptation techniques. Some of them are developing abilities that go beyond what either species can achieve naturally." The training programs were being developed carefully, with extensive input from both medical specialists and the Moonsingers, who served as advisors on the long-term implications of consciousness modification. The process was voluntary, reversible, and designed to enhance rather than replace natural abilities. But the results were remarkable. Consciousness bridges were becoming essential personnel on exploration missions, diplomatic initiatives, and research projects. They could facilitate communication not just between humans and Zephyri, but potentially with any intelligent species that might be encountered in the future. The galaxy was becoming a much smaller and more connected place. Marcus's personal relationships with Harmony, Resonance, and Echo had also evolved beyond simple friendship. They had become something like family, bound together by shared experiences and mutual dependence that transcended species boundaries. They had learned to understand each other's emotional needs, communication styles, and cultural values in ways that created genuine intimacy and trust. Bond strength between survival companions is deeper than normal friendship patterns, Harmony explained when Dr. Rodriguez asked about the unusual closeness between Marcus and the three Zephyri. "Shared danger and mutual dependence creates family connections that persist even after safety return. Marcus Human is our chosen family member, as we are his chosen family members." The concept of chosen family was revolutionary for both human and Zephyri societies. Humans were accustomed to forming close friendships, but the depth of connection possible with Zephyri harmonic bonding was something entirely new. Zephyri typically formed family connections only within their own species, but the survival experience had shown them that emotional bonds could transcend biological boundaries. Children from both species were growing up with a fundamentally different understanding of consciousness, identity, and community. Human children were learning harmonic communication as naturally as verbal language. Zephyri children were developing rapid adaptation skills that their elders found remarkable. And both groups were forming friendships that suggested the next generation would take interspecies cooperation for granted in ways that their parents found almost incomprehensible. "The future is being written by these children," Echo observed as she watched a mixed group of human and Zephyri children playing games that required both harmonic coordination and rapid problem-solving. "They think in patterns that neither of our species developed naturally. Bridge consciousness is becoming normal consciousness for the young ones." The Moon Singers were particularly interested in these developments. Their geological scale perspective allowed them to see patterns that shorter-lived species couldn't recognize. They believed that consciousness bridging represented an evolutionary development that could fundamentally change how intelligence operated in the galaxy. Cooperation consciousness emerges when species isolation ends, the keeper of deep memories explained during one of their regular sessions. Individual species thinking limited potential. Bridge thinking allows access to capabilities that transcend single species limitations. Galaxy consciousness may be emerging. The idea that the galaxy itself might be developing a form of collective consciousness through interspecies cooperation was both exciting and slightly overwhelming. Marcus sometimes felt like he was living through the early stages of an evolutionary leap that would be studied by historians for thousands of years. But, on a personal level, his life had become more fulfilling than he had ever imagined possible. His work as a consciousness bridge was challenging and meaningful. His friendships with the Zephyri had given him insights into forms of happiness and contentment that human culture alone could never have provided. And his relationship with the Moon Singers had connected him to perspectives on time, patience, and purpose that made every day feel significant. Standing on the observation deck of Harmony Station, watching ships from 3 civilizations working together to explore and settle new worlds, Marcus reflected on the strange journey that had brought him to this point. Being stranded on a deadly moon had seemed like the worst thing that could happen to him. Instead, it had led to the most important discoveries of his life. Harmony joined him at the viewing window, her presence bringing the sense of peace and rightness that he had learned to associate with harmonic resonance. Thought's patterns show deep satisfaction, she observed, reading his emotional state through the subtle cues that consciousness bridges learn to recognize in each other. I was just thinking about how everything started, Marcus replied. 3 months of survival that changed the course of galactic history. Survival time taught important lesson, Harmony said, her first shifting to colors that indicated philosophical contemplation. Individual consciousness seeking only personal safety creates limited outcomes. But, consciousness seeking harmony with others creates unlimited potential. Stranding situation forced cooperation discovery. Result was bridge building that benefits all participants. Echo and Resonance approached, carrying data tablets that showed the latest reports from the joint exploration missions. The 3 Zephyri had maintained their collaborative working relationship, but their individual talents had evolved in directions that none of them could have anticipated during their survival days. Next phase planning shows exciting possibilities, Resonance announced. Growth ship prototypes successful. Colony integration projects expanding. Bridge consciousness training programs producing excellent results. Ready for deep space exploration missions using combined capabilities. Marcus looked at the data, seeing mission plans that would have been impossible just 6 months ago. Crews of consciousness bridges working with ships that could adapt to any environment they encountered. Colony sites chosen through Moonsinger geological wisdom. Agricultural systems that could transform barren worlds into thriving ecosystems. We're not just exploring the galaxy anymore, Marcus realized. We're preparing to heal it. Echo made a sound that the translator rendered as profound agreement. Healing work requires patience of Moonsingers, harmony building of Zephyri, and determination of humans. Bridge consciousness makes all 3 abilities available to single mission teams. Damaged worlds can become thriving worlds. Failed colonies can be restored. Ancient environmental disasters can be reversed. The scope of what they were discussing was staggering. The combined technologies and consciousness bridging abilities could potentially restore ecosystems that had been destroyed by previous colonial efforts, terraform worlds that had been considered impossible to settle, and even begin healing damage that had been accumulating for thousands of years. It was the kind of ambitious, long-term project that could give purpose and meaning to entire civilizations for generations to come. And it had all started with 3 individuals who refused to abandon a stranded human, and 1 human who learned that survival was not just about staying alive, it was about creating connections that could transcend any barrier. As the 3 sons of the Kepler 442 system set beyond the observation windows, casting the station in the familiar amber light that Marcus had learned to associate with home, he realized that he had never actually been rescued from that deadly moon. Instead, he had found family, purpose, and a future that was larger and more meaningful than anything he could have imagined. The deadly moon had become the birthplace of galactic harmony. And the three aliens who had saved his life had become the most important teachers, friends, and family members he would ever have. Sometimes being lost was the only way to find what you were really looking for.